West Avenue Studios. This is the Jon Alan Show.
Hey guys, welcome to the Jon Alan Show. My name is Jon Alan. 3 hours of nothing, some fun and some truth and some, knowledge. I have to say, though, the reason we're late today, all my fault. Again, I was filling in for the Paul Ratterman show, and I get animated when I talk. So I start to flail my arms. Knocked my coffee everywhere. On the board, on the keyboards, on the computer, on this little box that I'm not supposed to get wet. Coffee everywhere. So that's why we're late, and it's my fault. I apologize. Anyway, we're here. Welcome to the Jon Alan Show. Today is Sunday, July 28th. What a week. Our top story today, I got to lead in with it because it's the biggest news that the United States has ever seen. Prince William and his wife, Kate. Yeah, that's right. I'm just kidding. That's not going to be a part of the Jon Alan Show. Not today, not ever. Congratulations to them. But did you see the media craze? Paul, did you see that? They were, when they left the hospital, the press and the media, they actually said, the baby has been buckled into the car seat. That was a headline in their live coverage of the new royal baby. Seriously, folks, come on. Congratulations to them, but whatever. Anyway, I wasn't on the air last week. I took a weekend off, and I tell you what, I was bored out of my mind. If I'm not doing things, if I'm not saying things, I'm bored. If I ever lose my job and I have nothing to do, I will likely shrivel up and die. Because I can't do it. I cannot sit around the house and have nothing to do. And that's what I did last weekend. It was terrible. I did, however, watch a movie. And I don't watch a whole lot of movies. I don't know why. I love movies, but I don't make time for it. I watched a movie called Drinking Buddies. And it's got Jake Johnson, Anna Kendrick, some other people in it. I'm not going to spoil it, but terrible. I'm going to give it, on my scale of 100%, I'm going to give it about a 55% just because of one thing, and I won't talk about it now. Maybe I'll talk about it in a few weeks if I remember, but I spent $10 on this movie because it was on Time Warner Cable's on demand, but it hasn't hit theaters yet, so it's $9.99 to watch it. I thought, oh, great. I'm going to be ahead of the curve, and I'm going to watch this movie. It was terrible. That's all I'll say. Some production notes before we move into content. Today's show is actually going to be the last show broadcast on Live 365. We're moving directions as far as our platforms go and software, etc. And Live 365 has been great. They have great capabilities, but the Jon Alan Show we're just going to move a different direction. But you can still find the show on iTunes, on Spreaker, on the website, and there will be more in the future. But today will be the last show broadcast on Live 365. The website, my bad. That's all I'm going to say about that, my bad. If you've been going to the website, and I've gotten a few emails, I didn't know I wasn't pushing the right buttons. I learned last night what I was doing wrong. And I was not hitting the right publish button. There was I don't know what it was. But anyway, we've got that fixed, so it's my bad. So the website, the show, everything's moving in a great direction right now. And we're really excited here at the Jon Alan Show to share those updates with you. Hopefully we'll be able to do that next week. So, I've been on Twitter last night. I was on Twitter. This morning I'm on Twitter, and I'm watching Johnny Manziel. And he's a great quarterback, and he has the potential to be a great role model. But what I'm seeing is the opposite. I don't know what he's doing. Like yesterday, or Friday and Saturday, he was in Austin at a UT frat party, and I think at least one of them he got thrown out of. And he's talking crap on Twitter today about UT and about their football record and about OU and their football record. So why is he doing this? He has the potential to be awesome, not only on the field, but just in general. And I think he's maybe he's letting it get to his head. Maybe his this fame, all of this sudden fame is getting to his head. But speaking of football, preseason starts like next week, I think, and then we are within months of kickoff, and I couldn't be more excited. I did not know how much I loved football until it went away. To be honest with you, I haven't liked football but maybe 3 or 4 years now, and that's thanks to my college roommate who loved football, who turned me on to it, and now I'm a freak about football. This year I'll be on 3 fantasy teams, probably more, but 3 football fantasy teams. I'm a huge Cowboys fan, and so if you're not a Cowboys fan, I need you to bear with me for 1 second. I read an article about Tony Romo, and it's all about why he is underrated. Because people hate Tony Romo. Why? It really is just unfounded. It really is because he hasn't gotten a Super Bowl win. He hasn't performed perfectly whenever it counted. But you can't put that all on Tony Romo's shoulders. I mean, the Cowboys just paid him in a contract $108 million. They obviously, now I'm not going to say that they have the best record for choosing players on their team, because Jerry Jones has taken way too active of a role in that job. But still, I mean, if they're going to pay him $108 million, there's something there. Obviously, they see something else. Well, could it possibly be that the offensive line, they don't have one? Or that the defense last year performed really, really under par? So now for 6 years, critics love to cite Tony Romo's 1-3 career mark in the postseason, 1-3 career mark in the postseason, as evidence of his overall inferiority. Incidentally, Matt Ryan, in his 1-4 playoff record, isn't held to the same standard. The truth is that no quarterback should be held to their playoff record. Let's look at his overall job as a quarterback. You know, his critics hold Romo accountable as an individual because none of them want to hear the individual statistics. None of them want to hear that he owns the 5th highest passer rating in the NFL history at 95.6, or that he's rated the 11th best quarterback in football last season, 10th in 2011 and 8th in 2010. Rather, Romo's singled out for faltering in big moments late in the games. But that's fine. Okay, of course, those who watch the Cowboys closely don't know that to be true. They know that Miles Austin runs hot and cold. DeMarco Murray spends much time in the cold tub because he's always hurt. And the defense just changed coordinators for the 3rd time in 4 years. In fact, it's not Romo sucking that generates so much venom. What's the simplest explanation? People just love to hate the Cowboys, and thus being a Cowboy quarterback puts him in the crosshairs. And I'm reading this, parts of it is from Elliot Harrison's article from the NFL.com, and it's a really good article. The bottom line is that all of these people who hate Romo or think that his complete omission from the top 100 players was justified don't want to hear any comparisons. Well, unless they do something like Eli, who has 2 Super Bowls and Romo has none, it makes sense on some levels. On some levels. Then again, it makes no sense. Such proclamations are constantly yelled from the mountaintops to support the notion that Romo folds under pressure. Never mind that you can count on him, on one hand, the number of quarterbacks who are under as much pressure as Romo last season. Even league analysts who don't like Romo much acknowledge that one has never had better pocket mobility. So here's some stats, if I can find them in this article. No, wrong article. Okay, so he's got great passer rating. He's got great record. He's a great record overall, especially last year, coming from behind and winning all those games from the fourth quarter. He gets no credit, and that is why I have spent 10 minutes, no, more like 8 minutes talking about Tony Romo, because this year is the year. Maybe if Jerry Jones would take his head out of his behind and let the coaches do their job, let them pick good, verified by their stats and having watched them play in college, let the coaches do their job, perhaps we would have an offensive line that could showcase Romo's abilities. Because you can see it on the field. You can see pieces of it. But it can't just be him. He can't be the passer and the catcher and making all the plays by himself. Everybody has to be on the same page. And in the past 6 years, we haven't seen that. Some question the decision of the Cowboys to offer him such a huge contract when he hasn't he hasn't produced playoff wins, Super Bowl titles. He hasn't produced these things, so why spend $108 million? Well, I think maybe Jerry Jones has finally seen the light. He knows what he has in Tony Romo. He understands this. He understands his failures. He understands that he is the reason. Jerry Jones is the reason there have been no titles. And he also understands that Tony Romo is the reason that there have been wins at all. So let's look forward to a good Cowboys football season. This is going to be an amazing football season, period. Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, RG3, Romo. This is going to be a great football season, and I can't wait. Now that basketball's over, I have nothing to watch. So all I can do is read these NFL articles and get more and more excited about football this year. All right, we got to take a quick break because I'm late and I just spent too much time talking about Tony Romo. So we will be right back. Check out the Jon Alan Show website. It's jonalanradio.com. There you can find Twitter, Facebook, email, all that good stuff, blogs. You know, now that I know how to update it, it's good. All right, we'll be right back.
Alan Show.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Jon Alan Show. All right, so we have very little time now, just over 2 hours to get through an inch stack of content. So first things first, I mean, what would be number one on my list to talk about? Of course, it's Anthony Weiner. Seriously, why wouldn't I talk about that ridiculous excuse for a husband and a man? Anthony Weiner. The Wiener. So at a press conference or some sort of gig he was doing for his failed campaign, he met up with some opposition, of course. This is a retired teacher giving him a little lesson on some morality.
I don't quite understand how you would feel you would have the moral authority as the head administrator in the city to oversee employees when your standard of conduct is so much lower than the standard of conduct that's expected of us.
Are you not voting for me?
I would not vote for you, sir.
Are you not? What the heck do you think? Are you not voting for me? He went on in that same bout with the retired teacher to say, well, I'm just going to let people choose for themselves. I'm going to leave it up to the people of New York to vote. If they like me, they'll vote for me. If not, they won't vote for me. And then he tried to turn it to policy. Well, in his position, I mean, sure. Why not turn it to policy? Why not get the focus off of that? Off of the sexting or whatever it's called, and turn it to policy? Well, because nobody's going to take him seriously whenever it comes to policy. To continue on the policy talk, this is he had the cojones to actually say this.
People have their personal lives. If it is unconnected to their professional duties, of course, I'm not going to judge someone's personal life.
Wait, what? Wait. He's going to consider hiring, people who do disgusting, possibly illegal things in their personal lives, as long as it doesn't touch their professional life. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Weiner, but regardless of what you say, regardless of how you classify something, if somebody's personal life comes onto the big screen, the public screen, it's going to affect them professionally. Obviously, this is something that he missed out on whenever, most kids are learning common sense. He was too busy playing with himself or something. This is Shepard Smith from Fox on Mr. Weiner.
Well, the one inescapable truth is here that the man who wants to be mayor
You're still on it. Okay, well, hang on.
has a picture of his penis online with the words "the dirty" stamped on it. And maybe there are New Yorkers who can see him speaking and not think about that vision that was thrust upon them. But I don't know anyone who can, not personally.
Yeah, Shepard, I'm with you. I am forever scarred by Anthony Weiner's wiener. And when they posted the link to that site, the picture was blurred out on the little JPEG stamp. It was blurred out, so I was like, okay, this is safe. I went to the website, and I saw Wiener. And I will forever be changed. And every time he talks about limiting somebody's ability to get a soda, or he's just going to carry on policies like that. So anytime he talks about this, all I'm going to see is a wiener. From a wiener. And then to add insult to injury, he stole the name. He wasn't even clever enough to get Carlos Danger or make it up himself. No, and he was confronted by the person whom he stole the name from.
Senor Weiner, why did you steal my name?
Senor Weiner, why did you steal the name? Listen to that. That's funny.
Senor
Why did you steal my name?
So not only is he a sexual deviant, he's not even creative enough to come up with his own sexual deviant alias. Carlos Danger isn't even his, and that's heartbreaking. Because, you know, if you're going to screw around, you need to be creative enough to, one, hide it, and number two, come up with a decent name, a decent alias. Do it. Producer Paul's asking if I think he will be elected. Who knows? It's New York City. Anything can happen. Anything does happen there. But honestly, I think at first people were just having fun with the idea that he was running for re-election, and I think, you know, New York, they try and be different. And for whatever reason, they thought this was a great way to show it that, you know, they're different, they're accepting of people, they're willing to give people second chances. But I think now that the new information that even after he resigned last, and after that phony press conference he held, and now his campaign managers quit, I think people are less willing to. They're probably not as accepting, I think, is what I'm going for. And so, no, I don't think he will win, and if he does, it won't be a landslide like they were initially predicting. Oh, absolutely. Producer Paul just asked if I think the wife is just sticking with him for power. Absolutely. There's no other reason to do it. She looks like a fool. First, I mean, it's one thing for a man to make a mistake, and you know, it's not acceptable. But it's one thing for him to make a mistake, and then she forgives him. But it's another thing for him to make a mistake, she forgives him. Make another mistake, she forgives him. Look like an idiot in front of the national media and everybody who's watching this. So, yeah, she's in it for power. Hell, she was working for Hillary Clinton, and all, I mean, that's a whole different story. There's going to be some more developments on that, but we're not going to go into that right now. What I'd like to talk about is, you know, how Democrats are now leading the way in the nation, and how they're leading the way as far as setting a great example. You know, it's okay if you want to become a sexual deviant, because people like in New York City, they're going to be forgiving. It's okay if you break the trust of those who put you in office. That's okay, because people like New York City, they're going to forgive you. All you got to do is shred all of your dignity, any kind of self-respect that you have left when you run for office the next time. And then that way, you know, you have a way to get through and pretend that you're a different person. You know, yes, I was a sexual deviant at one point, but not anymore. I'm a good guy now. I've changed. Let's leave this about policy. Let's let people decide for themselves. So these are the kinds of Democrats we've got leading the way right now. You got Wiener showing his wiener. You got Bob Filner, who's the San Diego mayor, who's accused of sexual harassment. And he's not stepping down. He's seeking treatment for his problem. He's not going to step down. You got Elliot Spitzer, who is a financial backer of prostitution. I think, you know, he was client number 9, if I remember correctly. Now he's running for New York City Comptroller. Do you think that Wiener and Spitzer sat down, said, all right, we're both perverts. We've both embarrassed ourselves and our families. Why not take it to the next level? Why not come back and prove to all those naysayers that we got this? We are going to lead the way. If you are a sexual deviant, you don't have to hide in the shadows. You can run for office. even after you've been disgraced, even after you've been chased out of office. You know, that's a class act. Those are the people leading the way in the Republican Party right now. They are setting the example. You got that. You've got an oblivious Democrat president, an oblivious Democrat Senate. And really, when you think about it, though, I mean, what can you pick out? What do you pick out when you think of politics in the Democrat Party right now? Scandal. A scandal. Scandal. We're gonna block jobs and economic growth in DC. Sexual deviant, running for office. That's who you've got running the Democrat Party right now. And it's great. And you got Nancy Pelosi, who's, you know what? God bless her soul. Because she is, I don't even know, it is like me talking to this microphone. Because this microphone's not going to respond to me. And it's not going to learn anything from me. That's what watching her is like. The facts are laid out in front of you. You can read them. They are tangible. And yet she's going to just not... It's just not going to sit... It's not going to get through. And she makes me crazy. Oh, man. We got to take a quick break. This one is going to be a short break. And after this break, we'll be back on time. All right, guys, thanks for checking out the Jon Alan Show. We are in the first hour of today's show. We'll be back. Check out the website, jonalanradio.com, JONALAN radio.com for Twitter, Facebook, email, blogs, some other audio-visual stuff that we've got up there. We'll be back.
This is the Jon Alan Show.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Jon Alan Show. Paul, you make a good point. He said, okay, well, what about Republicans? I mean, y'all, these are his words. Y'all got some idiots leading your party. Well, of course we do. Every political party has an idiot in their party, but the difference is that, let's take, for example, Marco Rubio. The people that put him in office are now saying, we're going to take you out of office. We are not going to vote for you because you did something that we don't like, that we told you not to do, so we're going to take you out of office. With Spitzer, with Weiner, with the San Diego guy, what's happening to them? Spitzer and Weiner are being rewarded by the prospect of having another political office. Spitzer's not being driven out of office. Not Spitzer, what's the San Diego guy's name? Bob Filner. That's the difference. And also, if it's widespread, like it was 4 years ago, what happened? They didn't like Republicans didn't like the way the Republican Party was headed, so some broke off and the Tea Party was created. What's happening in the Democratic Party? You don't see any of that. It's kind of groupthink over on that side. And groupthink is dangerous. All right, let's get back on it. So, of course, the race war, it's only getting worse. Some people said, oh, you know, the Zimmerman trial, that sparked it, it'll go away. Well, it's only getting worse because this is profitable. Some people are getting... There's rewards from this. This week on his show, during his Talking Point segment, Bill O'Reilly made two fiery statements about the recent reignited race war. This is what he had to say.
Here's the headline. Young black men commit homicides at a rate 10 times greater than whites and Hispanics combined. When presented with damning evidence like that, and like the mini Holocaust in Chicago, where hundreds of African Americans are murdered each year, the civil rights industry looks the other way or makes excuses. They blame guns, poor education, lack of jobs. Rarely do they define the problem accurately. So here it is. The reason there is so much violence and chaos in the black precincts is the disintegration of the African American family. Right now, about 73% of all black babies are born out of wedlock. That drives poverty. And the lack of involved fathers leads to young boys growing up resentful and unsupervised.
So now, of course, these race baiters are saying things like, what is O'Reilly talking about? What a racist. That is racist, racist, racist. Well, it's not a racist statement. It's a statement about race. Al Sharpton, the brilliant, the genius Al Sharpton, this is what he had to say.
And in the time since George Zimmerman's acquittal, some right-wingers have gone into overdrive to push the most negative stereotypes of the African-American community for their own gain. The Rush, Hannity, O'Reilly crowd, the unholy triumvirate of right-wing reaction.
Are you kidding me? They're doing it for gain. Rush, Hannity, and Limbaugh are doing it for gain. No. Seriously, at least if they are, it's not blatant. At least there's a message behind it. All these guys are doing on the left are saying, we got to rally against this. This is just an example of how the white man is bringing us. That is not what's going on here. There is a racial tension right now. Absolutely. There is a problem. Absolutely. And so whenever I heard this clip, I thought, oh, great. Here come the boycotts. Here come the calls to remove him from air. All of that stuff. But instead, I found this. This is CNN host Don Lemon. This is what he had to say.
But now that the jury has reached its verdict, one that everyone must accept, it's time now for some tough love on the subject. Someone on another network got the chance to go first because I couldn't go during the week. I'm only here on the weekend, so listen to this.
The reason there is so much violence and chaos in the black precincts is the disintegration of the African American family.
He's got a point. In fact, he's got more than a point. Bill?
Raised without much structure, young black men often reject education and gravitate towards the street culture, drugs, hustling, gangs. Nobody forces them to do that. Again, it is a personal decision.
He is right about that, too. But in my estimation, he doesn't go far enough.
Mr. Lemon goes on to say there's 5 essential reforms that black men need to make. Number 1, pull up your pants. Number 2, well, pull up your pants. Just have some self-respect is where he's going for. Number 2, drop the N-word. The idea that taking the N-word and making it less significant, that is void when people in the black community use the N-word derogatory in a derogatory way. And he's right about that. 3, take care of your community. He gave examples of when he lived in a white community and littering wasn't an issue. And there was a camaraderie throughout the community. And now he lives in Harlem and he says that, litter is an issue and neighbors fight all the time. Number 4, finish high school. That's where the income disparity comes from. You don't finish high school, you make $19,000 a year. You finish high school, that's a $10,000 bump. You go to college, that's a $20,000 bump. And the 5th thing, and this was his big point, was stop having kids out of wedlock. He says that 72% of kids in the African American community are born out of wedlock. So, me, Jon Alan, do I think that there is a race problem in the U.S.? Absolutely, yes. But it's not the same racism that we saw 50 years ago. The racism we see now is it's the product of idiots with money and microphones trying to draw up contributions and airtime. For me, it's pretty telling when someone like Don Lemon and Al Sharpton disagree, especially on remarks like O'Reilly's. But furthermore, I think it's a cultural issue that we're trying to hide. It's easier to say it's a racial issue, it's race, rather than saying it's a family issue. And it is not just in the black community. It's in the white and Hispanic communities, because it's not about race. It's about having fatherless children. Having a fatherless upbringing, it's not just a African American or a black community thing. It's not detrimental just to black Hispanic kids and Hispanic kids. It's detrimental to all kids. Without that role model, without that feeling of belonging to a family, you go somewhere else. And that's why you see in places like Detroit, for example, there's so much gang violence. Is because without that familial feeling, you go find it somewhere else. And more often than not, some people might gravitate towards gangs, even though that may not, violence and gang activity may not be the desired result. But when you get into it and you have this feeling of of a family, it becomes commonplace. It becomes acceptable. And I do think that it is very telling whenever someone like Don Lemon from CNN, and Al Sharpton from MSNBC disagree on something like that. Obviously, somebody is paying attention to what's going on. In this case, it would be Don. And obviously, somebody is just trying to flame the fires. In this case, it would be Al Sharpton. There's obviously a disconnect. And obviously, there is an ulterior motive. Somebody who is trying to bridge the gap and trying to put out this racial fire by saying maybe we need to look inward, is being attacked by somebody who is saying absolutely racism is alive and well. And no, O'Reilly, you're wrong. It's not about the family. It's about white America. I don't know the answer. All I can tell you is what I think. All I can tell you is that there is a race problem in America, but it's not. It is not Jim Crow-like. It is not lynch. It is not murder black people like. It's not the racism that we saw 50, 60, 70 years ago. Racism that we see today, it really is the product of people who benefit, people who profit from that racism. And whether or not we like the verdict, whether or not anybody likes the verdict in the Zimmerman-Martin trial, these racial flames that are just growing because of it are a production of people like Al Sharpton. I don't know her name, but she's the one who wore tampons. Do you know her name? I don't know. It's the product of people like that who will profit for months and months and months by creating this fake racial issue. I mean, let's be honest. They called for a trial. These leaders who are now crying foul and racism, they called for the trial of George Zimmerman. They got their trial. They got their trial. They were happy with the jury that was picked, and then they got the result that they were not hoping for. They got a result that they did not want, they did not like. And now it's not acceptable. At this point, when they don't get the result that they like, this point it is not acceptable. So of course it's got to be a race thing. Of course this is an example of how the system is flawed. And how the system targets minorities. It's not about the statistics that show that the population of prisons is demographically correct with the statistics of crime. And now you've got, I mean, Trayvon Martin's mother and father. I mean, I don't have kids. I have a dog. I know how upset I would be if anything ever happened to my dog. But I can't imagine their pain, and I understand that they wanted closure, and they wanted probably deep down in their heart of hearts they wanted a guilty verdict just so that they could have closure, and that's completely and perfectly acceptable. But at first they're calling for peace. They're saying that this wasn't a race issue. And now the reports are that this is a race issue in their eyes. Why would it change? Why would their view change? I mean, sure, they got the verdict that they got a verdict they didn't like, and it didn't offer them any kind of closure, and they don't feel like they got justice. But saying that it's not a race issue from right after the verdict to a few days later, having spent some time with Al Sharpton and other civil rights leaders. And I'm going to take that back. Quote, civil rights leaders. Why would it change? Of course, they're baiting it. Of course, this poor family who's looking for justice and closure is being baited into possibly thinking that this is a race issue. So, and that's where it just becomes more and more evident that this is a profit thing. This is a profit game. The more rallies, the more attention only equals more contributions, more airtime. So everything that they're saying that they're fighting for, they're negating. And people like Don Lemon who see this, who see what O'Reilly said, and at least give it some rational thought. I mean, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with anything I say. Any conservative, you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to agree with anything a Democrat says, but you at least have to give it half a second of logical thought. Otherwise, what's the point of even watching? What's the point of even listening? So attached to that article was an article from Forbes, and the title is 6 Rules of Personal Success. And I read it and I loved it. There's 6 rules that we have to follow. If you want to be successful in life, if you want to be professionally or personally, these 6 rules are going to help you. Number 1, get your priorities straight. Getting your priorities right is about choosing whether to go to school, start your own business, or working for somebody else. Whether to get married, stay single, whether to have children or not, whether to stay married or get divorced, whether to remarry if widowed or divorced. Then you have to choose how to spend your money. So get your priorities right first. Secondly, use your resources wisely. If you use your resources wisely, you're making an intelligent choice. It's about deriving the most valuable out of limited resources, shopping around for the right merchandise, and asking 3 simple questions. Do I need this piece of merchandise? Is the price right? Is the merchandise the best use of my money? Number 3, stay focused. Staying focused means sticking with your priorities and your goals, focusing on the message, not the background noise, and executing. Take the first steps to reach your goals, and that's all that matters in the end. Number 4, develop the right relations. Reaching a certain goal requires moral and psychological stamina. It takes skills and resources no single individual possesses. That means that in pursuing personal success, people need to make friends and partners to overcome the many obstacles that stand in between them and their personal goals. Number 5, don't be greedy. Greed is the relentless pursuit of something that lets people distinguish and set themselves apart from others. money, power, status, and so on. The feeling that they never have enough of it, and nothing can stop them from assuming, amassing, and acclimating it. Greed is an obsession like that, like alcohol. It numbs people's senses, blurs their vision, and it makes them lose sight of the big picture. Greed leads people to live a life of imbalance and disproportion, a reckless life, and a dangerous life. And number 6, don't be complacent. Complacency is the opposite of greed. It's the idolization of things people have accomplished, the feeling that they have reached the telos, or the ultimate destination. Successful people cannot afford to be complacent because good times do not last forever, especially in a rapidly changing world. That's why the complacency is dangerous. People who are complacent with their accomplishments fail to catch up with the rest of the world and are left behind. And I think that's a great segue from the Talking Points memo on Bill O'Reilly's show, talking about it's the family, it's the breakdown of the family that's leading to these problems. And then Don Lemon saying, well, yeah, I mean, that's true, but you're not going far enough. You know, these are the things that we need to do. And they focus it on the African American community. I'm focusing it on the entire American community because we're failing. We're not doing as well as we did in the past. So we need to refocus. We need to follow these 6 rules of success. And you can apply them on a personal, on a professional, on a national, on a policy, on law, on anything. You can put these 6 rules in place and be successful. And I think that's one thing that we're failing to do is actually taking the time to try and be successful. All right, we got to take a quick break. This is the Jon Alan Show. Check out the website, jonalanradio.com, JONALAN radio.com. Come back, we'll talk a little bit about Detroit, Battleground, Texas, and these so-called phony scandals. I'm gonna get a little bit loud in a little bit. All right, we'll be back. Paul, we got some volume issues going on. I'm not sure what that means, but... Alright guys, welcome back to the Jon Alan Show. So listen closely. I'm going to play something for you. And this is kind of indicative of the past 5 years. Listen.
We refuse to let Detroit go bankrupt.
Now, first, let me say that clearly in this clip, you got to take the context and you got to process it. Clearly, Obama was talking about the auto industry when he made that statement. But he still got it wrong. The auto industry is not synonymous with Detroit. So last week or the week before, at the end of that week, Detroit filed for bankruptcy. They're billions in debt, and they don't have any money. And Republicans and a lot of other people are blaming it. And they're blaming it on three different things. First, they're blaming it on a failing auto industry. Second, they're blaming it on exuberant and overpaid pensions. And third, they're blaming it on liberal policy that's leading to overspending. So while researching this, I pulled two articles. The first article is a USA Today. Let me see, is it USA? No, it's from Detroit Free Press. And it's going to disprove that the failing auto industry and the high pensions are what's leading to the demise and bankruptcy of Detroit. I pulled a second article that's going to prove point number 3. It's going to prove that liberal policy is leading to overspending, irresponsible spending that they could not, in the furthest reaches of your imagination, pay for. And this is going to be, and that's an article from US Mike. So first, the myths and truths about the bankruptcy. And this is Greg Gardner from the Detroit Free Press. There are two misconceptions that have been spouted over the past week about Detroit's bankruptcy. The first is that the auto industry and Detroit are synonymous, and that bloated pension benefits pushed the Detroit budget into ruin. The fact is that the auto industry, it's now posting strong domestic profits, and it hasn't been connected to Detroit for decades. So Obama using Detroit was basically political posturing. Who lives in Detroit? Well, that's predominantly a black community. So Romney saying that they're going to let Detroit go bankrupt, and then Obama saying we're not going to let Detroit go bankrupt, is obviously just posturing. So here's some of the claims that were reported in the media this week. The claim, sky-high pension payouts and sweetheart union deals strangled Detroit. The reality is that the average annual pension for retired Detroit police officers and firefighters is about $34,000. Roughly half of that of people in Los Angeles and Chicago. 25% less in Kansas City, and 36% less in benefits those in Dallas. Retirees from Detroit's General City Pension Fund receive, on average, less than $20,000 a year. The second claim, the health of Detroit, 3 auto companies, and the city go hand in hand. Well, the reality is that the auto industry and the city are culturally and emotionally tied, but no way are they synonymous. The financial ties have grown tenuous over the last 30 years. There are only 2 assembly plants in the city limits. Chrysler's Jefferson North plant, and General Motors' Detroit Hamtramck Center. GM is the only automaker headquartered in that city. So a failing auto industry, which is obviously not correct, because as demand continues to increase, the auto industry in the U.S. continues to profit. The idea that the pensions in Detroit are bankrupting the city is also untrue. They make less than California. They make less than Dallas. Some making less than $20,000 per year. So those two things, let's go ahead and dispel those rumors. Let's go ahead and let's examine my third point. And the third point being used by Republicans. The reason Detroit is bankrupt is simple. Liberal policy that leads to overspending, spending way outside of the limits of the budget, spending money on frivolous, unneeded, and bad policy has led to this bankruptcy. An example. Oh, look, right here, right in my hands is an example. With a bankrupt government, a stalling economy, and one of the highest unemployment rates in the nation, Detroit has chosen to use precious state funding to build a new $444 million hockey arena. So you're broke. You don't have any money. You're actually in debt. You're in the negative by billions. And you're going to spend $444 million on a hockey arena. This is from the U.S. Mike, and this is Maggie O'Neill. While Detroit's emergency manager Kevin Orr claims that the project is, quote, part of an economic development, if it is as productive as it's supposed to be, that's going to be a boon for the city, end quote. Its real benefit will likely be tepid at best. Even if there are vast benefits from the investment, the ramifications of cutting spending elsewhere to fund it will outweigh its profits. And any profits that are made will not come soon enough to the dire economic hardships that Detroit and its citizens are facing. Because of spending cuts and layoffs in the Detroit Police Department, officers take an average of 1 hour to respond to a situation. Needless to say, the city's safety isn't enhanced by the fact that 40% of its streetlights have been turned off permanently. When a family files for bankruptcy, they're required to assess necessities, such as health and safety, and cut back on everything else that's not needed. In moving forward with this new construction of this hockey arena, spending $444 million on a hockey arena, Detroit is doing just the opposite. You know, it reminds me of 2 weeks ago I talked about the idiots in D.C. on the D.C. City Council. What did they do? Well, they thought it was a good idea to bully Walmart, to say, you can afford it, so we're going to charge you more. We're not going to charge anybody else more, but you're going to have to pay higher. You're going to have to pay higher taxes. This is going to be more expensive for you. I know you're bringing in 6 new Walmarts into this area. We know that it's going to bring billions into the economy. We know it's going to add thousands of jobs. But because we're idiots, we're going to hold you down. So Walmart pulls out. Detroit, bankrupt, no money. What are they going to do? they're going to spend $444 million on a hockey arena. Even if it was sold out, every game, I don't know anything about hockey. I don't know how many games there are, but let's say it's $20 a ticket. Let's say it's $50. No, let's say it's $150 a ticket. It's going to take years for it to actually be meaningful to the economy of Detroit. And like the article said, it doesn't matter because what they're going to have to cut now, the spending that they're going to have to cut and divert away from actual useful spending programs, it doesn't matter because those programs are not an economic boost. They're going to pull from these meaningful programs to fund a hockey arena. So on Monday, after they'd have the weekend to process it, the liberals had come up with their arguments, figured out a way to blame it on the right. This is what Sally Cohn had to say on Brett Baer's show on Monday.
The tail out of this is that a number of folks are going to try and use Detroit falsely as an example to push more austerity, to really cram more austerity down the throats of the United States, where, look, every study that supposedly said austerity and cutting spending in order to create growth was a good idea has been disproven. It has hurt England's economy and elsewhere. I mean, England, literally, they can't even save the bathwater with the baby. And now they're going to try and use that to use Detroit as an excuse to do more of this. You know, look, Republicans, unfortunately, when the economy is good, they want to cut spending and cut taxes. And when the economy is bad, they want to cut spending, cut taxes. That's just their answer to everything. Sorry. Here is where we need spending to help. That's just the reality.
So Detroit is not really an example of the failure of GOP economic policies. It's been run by the Democrats for 60 years. And you can cite all the studies you want about how bad austerity is. All you have to do is look at Detroit and you get an idea of how bad the absence of austerity is. It's a city in ruin. I think the reason that the administration is hesitant to even talk about a bailout is understands that Detroit is a precedent. The minute you step into a bailout in Detroit, you're going to get every city in the country lining up with a tin cup. And that's why I think even this administration is going to hold back from doing this.
So that was Sally Cohn and Charles Krauthammer on Brett Baer's show on last Monday. Yes, heaven forbid Republicans want to cut spending and cut taxes. She said, unfortunately, when the economy is good and bad, Republicans just want to cut. What is wrong with that? The left continues to push how difficult it is to balance, to manage the U.S. budget, and how it's not equivalent to the workings of a household budget. I would agree with that last part, 2%, because, and here's why. In a household budget, if you don't have the money, you don't spend money, with few exceptions. Exceptions like a house. Most people don't have $200,000 sitting around to buy a house, so they take out a loan. Most people don't even have $30,000 just sitting around, so they take out a loan for a car. The same should apply to the government. You don't have money for it? Don't spend it. Let me fix this problem for the left. When balancing the budget, think of it as a household budget. If you don't have the money in the bank, stop spending. If you take out loans to pay for extravagance, you're going to lose your house and car if you don't make the payments. The same can be applied to Detroit. Let's just think about it in the terms of Detroit. The liberal policies in Detroit spent billions of dollars that they didn't have, and billions more than they brought in tax revenue. And now they are bankrupt. So don't let the left fool you. It really isn't that hard of a concept. And again, though, in this clip, the left, they're trying to distance themselves from the chaos that their policies have created, and they start to blame it on somebody else. Who is to blame for this? Because it's definitely not the Democrats. It's definitely not a liberal policy. It's nothing to do with the left. So this is that was Sally Cohn saying austerity. This just shows the negativity of austerity. Well, cuts took place all over the United States. And Detroit's the only one that's declared bankruptcy right now. So for Detroit, Sally's blaming austerity. For the economy, Obama, of course, is blaming Bush. Because they're never going to take responsibility. They're never going to say, yes, that was our bad, whenever they put out and implement bad policy. And, if we don't wise up as a country, the United States government, the United States as a whole, is going to look exactly like Detroit. We're headed down that path right now. I mean, could you imagine if Obama did bail out Detroit? Could you imagine that? That just set a precedent for places like California and Florida and the northeastern states. Because they're all in debt. They're all in debt to liberal, irresponsible spending. And the second that Obama offers a handout to Detroit, they all are going to come running. They're all going to go running for a handout, for their bailout. Krauthammer, though, at the end of that clip, he said, quote, "The minute you step into a bailout in Detroit, you're going to get every city in the country lining up with a tin cup. And that's why even this administration is going to hold back from doing this." And let's hope that he's right. Let's hope that this doesn't bear any kind of grounds in the next election. Because if it does, if they see any positive outcome from offering a bailout to Detroit in the next election, if they see that affecting the elections positively, done. Bailout city. And then you've got the northeastern states. And then you got California. Let's point out something. I live in Texas. And we're actually rejecting bailout money. In 2008 or 2009, whenever Obama did the stimulus, we rejected that money. Because conservative policies in Texas have left Texas healthy. Texas has a healthy economy, has a low unemployment rate. Conservative policy. On the other side, Detroit. Really high unemployment. Really, really, really stagnant economy. Liberal policy. $444 million on a hockey stadium. So let's just take it for what it is. Obviously, liberal policy in this country is humanitarian as people like to say that it is, and as evil as the right is for wanting to cut these entitlements and cut this ridiculous spending. What's more evil? Allowing it to continue and leaving the states in ruins? Or saying, why don't we cut back? Let's cut back. Let's save some of this. Let's stop spending so much for longevity's sake. what's more evil? Saying nothing or fighting for what we think is actually going to help? Because obviously for the past 5 years, what they've had, what the liberal establishment has done, it's not working. Hate to break it to you. It's not working. All right, we got to take a break. This is the Jon Alan Show. Check out the website, JONALANradio.com. We'll be right back.
From the West Avenue Studios, this is The Jon Alan Show.
Hey guys, welcome back to The Jon Alan Show. So first, First, it was the it was reporters. Then it was conservative groups. And now it's Texas. The Obama administration is now focused on Texas. This from Politico. Texas versus the Obama administration is one of the most reliable shows in politics. The latest round, it began last month when hours after the Supreme Court struck down Section 5 of the VRA, the Voting Rights Act, Abbott immediately moved to start implementing the state's controversial new voter ID laws. Thursday morning, Holder countered, announcing in a speech to the National Urban League in Philadelphia that the DOJ would ask a court to consider a new avenue to force those laws to go through federal pre-clearance, since he says they are clearly discriminatory. So, it's Texas. It's the fact that Texas is, we're Republicans. We are predominantly Republicans. And obviously, making the announcement at the National Urban League in Philadelphia, obviously, there is no political posturing in that. None at all. The article goes on to say, quote, "This seems to be more political theater than it does any kind of legal statement, and it's disturbingly seems to make it look like the Obama administration is trying to insert itself into Texas, which," this is from Greg Abbott, said really undermines the very purpose of the Voting Rights Act. Jeremy Byrd, a former Obama strategist and a senior advisor to Battleground Texas, said he also expected a boost from Holder's efforts because apparently there has been a boost to Greg Abbott's campaign. He's now running for governor of Texas next year. So Jeremy Byrd says, quote, "Around the country, we have a long way to go to protect and encourage people to vote. And there are a few places where the problems are more apparent than Texas, where intentional discrimination has too often been a part and parcel of the state's Republican political machinery." So the whole situation, the whole thing, it's not about voters. It's not about voter IDs. It's not about the Voting Rights Act. It's about making Texas a blue state. Even Democrats in Texas concede that anything good that comes out of this, good for the Democrats, that comes out of this, isn't going to be seen for years. Wendy Davis, standing up to those mean old Republicans. You're not going to see the benefit of that for years. You're not going to see the benefit of that. Specifically, Wendy Davis. So now Battleground Texas, sending in their advisors and their political analysts and their rallies, trying to make Texas blue. The problem for them is that Texas is successful. Texas has, like I said earlier, low unemployment, a very healthy economy. Businesses and people are flooding to Texas. And the whole nation sees it. So this attempt to turn Texas blue is going to be flawed, because even the African American and Hispanic communities in Texas see that Texas is successful, and that changing the political fabric of Texas is obviously going to be detrimental to the health of the state and to the health of its citizens. let me make the comparison again. Detroit. Liberal policy, now bankrupt. Texas, conservative policy. Very healthy economy, low unemployment, happy citizens, people from all over the United States moving to Texas. Will there be debates? Will there be arguments among Republicans and Democrats? Absolutely, because not all Republican policies can be grasped by Democrats and by liberals. Prime example was the abortion debate that we had last month. Not everybody thought that it was a good idea. Some Republicans didn't like it. Most Democrats didn't like it. But in a predominantly Republican state, you get Republican representatives and Republican senators. It's not far-fetched to imagine that that bill would pass. And so what Wendy Davis did when she was doing her publicity stunt was nothing. She can run for governor next year. She will lose. Battleground Texas can try and turn Texas blue. They will lose. Because as much as the Obama administration wants us to believe it, Texas leaders are not dumb. Texas is not a dying state. Conservative policies in Texas are good. So the battle will continue. But unfortunately for them, the left will lose. The left is more than welcome to bring their views into Texas. Nobody's going to say any differently. Because it's Texas. It's the United States. That's how we do it. There's a debate. There's always a debate. There's always different sides. The difference is that in Texas, there's a debate, period. There's not a forceful hand pushing unwanted policies on its citizens. What? Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of just what I said, though. Paul just asked, well, what about the abortion law? Not everybody wanted that. Again, Texas is predominantly Republican. That means you've got Republican senators and Republican. Well, no, because that's how it works. I mean, the majority who want the law, if they have a majority in the government, that's what they get. And a majority of Texans and a majority of states in the United States want these types of laws. There's always going to be somebody unhappy with the law. Right now, me and many people are unhappy with what's going on in the White House and the laws that are being passed through Congress. Because the majority are getting what they want. They're getting the laws that they think are going to benefit the nation. As wrong as I think they are, it's still how the political process works. That's no different in Texas. So we'll see how this goes. Eric Holder is, of course, shopping around for a judge because that's what he does. If he can't get a substantive policy or a substantive rule on the books, he's going to shop it around for a judge who's going to agree. And he'll keep doing that just because that's how he is. And we'll see how it turns out, but it's not going to turn out good for him. All right, so let's move on. This week, Obama said this.
But with this endless parade of distractions and political posturing and phony scandals, Washington's taken its eye off the ball. And I'm here to say this needs to stop.
Christopher Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, Tyrone Woods. Remember those names. Listen to this.
And it shouldn't be on the skirmishes that cause gridlock. It shouldn't be on the phony scandals that have consumed so much attention here, all to come to naught. It should be focused on what we can do to strengthen and grow the middle class.
All come to naught. Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, Tyrone Woods. These are 4 Americans who are now dead. Almost a year later, Congress has not been able to hear from the surviving eyewitnesses. And yet this is a phony scandal. 4 dead Americans. The IRS targeting political groups, the impartial, unaffiliated IRS targeting conservative groups. And people say, well, liberals were targeted as well. It doesn't matter. If they only targeted liberals, it'd be a scandal. That is a phony scandal, according to Obama and Carney. The DOJ targeting reporters, phony scandal. Fast and Furious, shipping weapons over the border, phony scandal. The people who are dead because of those weapons, phony scandal. The DOJ sending its employees to Florida to organize racially themed rallies, phony scandal. Obama making any statement at all in the Zimmerman-Martin trial, that's a phony scandal as well. Why would they call these rallies, these scandals, phony? 4 dead Americans, a targeting IRS, a targeting DOJ, weapons scandals, racial scandals. Why is that phony? I'll tell you why it's phony. I'll tell you why they're calling it phony. Is because it all points back to them, to Washington. It all points back to the fact that they are going to get busted because they were not doing the right thing. They were not following the rules. So these eyewitnesses, these surviving eyewitnesses who are probably being intimidated into not testifying. The IRS targeting these political groups. The ongoing DOJ targeting reporters, sending people to Florida, targeting Texas, Fast and Furious. Obviously, something is going on if they're calling them phony. You've got the mother of Sean Smith asking for answers, and you've got the president saying this.
But with this endless parade of distractions and political posturing and phony scandals.
Phony scandals. This woman lost her son and cannot get an answer to what happened, why there was a failure. People are dying because of weapons that were sent over the border in Fast and Furious, but it's a phony scandal. I mean, did we get the theme? They're so used to being let off the hook when they screw up that they're able to say these things and there's no repercussions. But is the media buying it, though? Because that's who's letting them off the hook. Is the media. Is the these hack journalists who don't even deserve to be called journalists are letting them off the hook. This from Fox News. The phony scandal line was the unofficial talking point of the week in Washington. Jay Carney made it his fallback retort from the podium. When asked about the president's new wave of speeches on the economy, Carney explained that he was trying to refocus Washington away from, quote, fake controversies. For 3 speeches in a row, Obama's hammered this refrain, quote, with the endless parade of distractions and political posturing and phony scandals, Washington has taken its eye off the ball. When has Washington's eye ever been on the wall or on the ball? Fast forward 2 months as Obama hit the trail to talk about the economy. 2 CNN anchors this week described the controversies that had dogged him as so-called scandals. The Conservative Media Research Center also calculates that on the big 3 networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC, the number of stories on the IRS scandal has plummeted. The evening and morning shows did 96 stories in the first 2 weeks, according to MRC. The coverage steadily disappeared. And between June 28th and July 24th, the center recorded 0 stories. When a major development broke last week, testimony by a retired IRS worker that said an Obama appointee was involved in the screening process, only CBS Evening News gave any mention to the issue. Even before Obama and his team began pushing the phony scandal line, a few media outlets and personalities were making the case. Salon published an article on the IRS issue earlier this month asserting that, in the end, the entire scandal narrative was fiction. Lawrence O'Donnell from MSNBC made the same argument, but given the attention their own networks gave to the IRS and other scandals just a few weeks earlier, a number of journalists and media personalities refused to go that easy on the president this week. On MSNBC, host Joe Scarborough ripped into Carney on Wednesday. And this is a special treat because what's his name? Joe Scarborough on The Morning Joe is a hack. First of all, journalist, and second of all, a terrible excuse for a Republican. Listen to this.
Question: what phony scandals? Do you think the IRS scandal is a phony scandal?
And let me just say, though, Joe deserves a pat on the back for this because, I mean, finally, he did his job. But listen.
Question: what phony scandals? Do you think the IRS scandal is a phony scandal?
I think what we've seen is inappropriate activity that the president came out and forcefully said he would not tolerate, and that he installed somebody at the IRS to take care of. What we have seen from Republicans is cherry-picked information based on investigations that turns out to be only one side of the story. Again and again and again, if you look up on Capitol Hill, when Chairman Issa and others have selectively released information and refused to release the full facts show that the story is quite different. And I think it's demonstrated by the way that the press has, gotten extremely excited about the potential for a scandal and basically dropped it when the facts have come out.
So I want to get to the economy, Jay,
but to turn into partisan skirmishes. Yeah.
Jay, I want to get to the economy because obviously that's the most important thing. We have to clean up this one thing, though. I mean, you say that there's cherry-picked information on the side. Let's just take the IRS scandal. The fact is, it's far different than what you said. At the beginning, you said it was just the Cincinnati office. And then we find out more people in Washington are involved. And then this past week, we found out, despite what any of us think of the investigations on Capitol Hill, and I see you smiling, I don't know that there's anything to smile about, that it wasn't a couple of crazy people in Cincinnati, that this information actually went up to the chief counsel of the IRS, which was one of 2 political appointees by the President of the United States in the entire IRS. So it doesn't sound phony to me, Jay.
Joe, I greatly appreciate that is the line that is being pushed by Republicans who want Washington to be focused on scandals instead of the economy.
No,
Wait,
Jay,
Joe,
that doesn't work. Is that the truth or not, Jay? Is that the truth or not? You said, Jay, that this was limited to Cincinnati. That wasn't true.
No.
I want to talk about the economy, but talk to me.
Joe.
Don't give me talking points because that doesn't work on this show. And you've been here long enough to know it doesn't work on this show. Okay. So answer my question, and then let's talk about the economy.
When you get to the question, I'll answer it. Here it is. What we said all along.
I gave you the question, and you decided to fight me, Jay. So stop your games with me. We've known each other for too long. I'm not playing your games. I'm not somebody you talk down to from your podium. Answer my question, Jay.
Joe, please, let me answer it. there is no question that activity that occurred at the at the IRS was inappropriate, and the president...
Sounds like a Freudian slip to me. Activity that occurred in the White House. You know, Jay Carney is... I've used this word several times in today's broadcast, but he's just a ridiculous, paid hack, liar, jerk. I mean, how can any human go before a crowd of people, go before cameras, and say that these scandals are phony? First, we've got dead Americans. Second, we've got constitutionally protected professions being targeted. Third, we've got regular people trying to make America a better place being targeted. We've got people dying because of something that the administration was a part of. And yet it's phony. It's phony. They're not going to take responsibility. And the media is buying it. You say something's phony, you're part of the administration, and you say something's phony, they're going to let it go. Be damned. What actually happened, be damned. All right. We're about to wrap up the show. When we come back, the broadcasting community got some really bad news last night. And I've waited to the end of the show to even talk about it. Because it's just terrible. It's terrible, terrible news. When we come back, we'll talk about it. We'll wrap up the show. This is Jon Alan Show. Website, JONALANradio.com. We'll be back.
This is the Jon Alan Show.
Guys, welcome back to the Jon Alan Show. So there's no way to start a segment like this. And so I just don't even know where to go to start it out properly. I'm probably going to do it wrong. Last night, Kid Craddock of Kid Craddock in the Morning passed away. And it was a shock. It was, well, let me read you. I wrote a post on the website, and I put it on the website last night. Let me read it to you, and then I'll explain it. It says, today, Kid Craddock passed away. Kid was the host of Kid Craddock in the Morning, which was heard on over 100 stations nationwide weekday mornings. In 1991, Kid founded Kids Kids, a listener-funded charity that focused on giving terminally ill kids the opportunity to be kids for a week rather than patients in a hospital. Initial reports say that Kid died from complications stemming from a brain aneurysm. He died in New Orleans, where he was hosting a golf tournament benefiting his charity. So those are the stats. Personally, I'm devastated. I was sitting at my computer this evening, and I saw a tweet from Bobby Bones that said, quote, "Rip Craddock." Rest in peace, Craddock. My heart dropped, my jaw dropped, and my stomach knotted up. I felt silly at first. I didn't know Kid, and he didn't know me. As the news and the tweets rolled in, I felt my heart breaking. As I tried to rationalize these feelings, it occurred to me that I did know Kid. I spent hours upon hours listening to a show. When I first got my big boy job in 2006, I'd listen to his show while I drove to work. If I missed it in the morning, I would listen to the podcast in the afternoon. If I was bored on the weekends, I would listen to the best of segments. For 8 years, Kid was a part of my life, and I'm devastated by his passing. Kid is the reason I fell in love with radio. So call me silly for being devastated by the death of a celebrity. Call me silly for taking the time to write this post. At least I can say that I'm not alone. Since the 80s, Kid has touched the lives of many listeners. With Kids Kids, he changed the lives of many families. And in radio, he's forever changed the format. Today, the world lost a true hero. That's what I wrote last night. I feel weird today. I don't know what the feeling is. It's just a weird feeling. I mean, as I said in my post, I didn't know Kid. But I spent hours. I mean, there's no way to quantify the hours that I spent listening to him and the entire show. But after the news yesterday, I mean, it came flooding back to me. Why I fell in love with radio. I was up all night last night listening to 106.1, which is the KISS station in Dallas-Fort Worth. And this is Billy the Kid on 106.1 announcing Kid's death.
I think all of us here at KISS, Yeah Networks, Kid Craddock and the Morning Crew, were absolutely heartbroken over the loss of our dear friend, not just a friend, a leader. Kid devoted his entire life to making people smile every morning. And for 21 years, his foundation has been dedicated to bringing joy to thousands of chronically and terminally ill children and changing their lives. Kid passed away today in New Orleans, doing what he loved. He was at a golf tournament organized to raise money for Kids Kids. And his final day, it was spent selflessly focused on those special children that meant the world to him. And I know that from personal experience, from seeing it, from being on the Kids Kids trip, to knowing how much hard work he dedicated to that. It wasn't work. It was something. It was a passion, and it truly brought him joy, and it changed so many people's lives. If I break down, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm sorry. This is by far the hardest thing I've ever had to say or announce on the radio. And not just the hardest, the worst, to be honest with you. We lost an incredible man today. And it's not just about, and I say man because it's not just about a coworker. It's not just about a personality or a morning show. To us, it's family.
And so after that news was broken last night, and after they were on the radio talking about it, a group of listeners from hours away drove to the studios to bring flowers and to bring their heartfelt memories of Kid Craddock. And even now as I'm doing the show, I'm thinking to myself, am I silly for being this upset about it? But ultimately, I don't think so. I mean, this was a man he stood for something. He could have been some jerk who made tons of money doing this radio show and been okay with that. And yet he spent his time, he spent years since 1991, whenever he created Kids, focused on kids. He stood for something. He stood for the kids. He stood for creating good entertainment. He was called the goody two-shoes of morning radio. Because you could listen. I could take my nephews and we could listen to that entire show. And I would have no problem with it. One of the things I remember the most about listening to a show is something happened, something terrible. I think it was an accident, and there was a video of it. And so either two of the other cast members had watched it and said it was crazy. And Kid said, "No, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch something that's not soul enriching." You know, he stood for something, and the 20 or some odd years that he spent on the radio, he not only touched his listeners, but he changed the lives of kids. He changed the lives of people who were around him. And it's just a terrible, terrible tragedy for the community. And it wasn't just about a morning show, though. I mean, we get connected to people, especially if we spend hours and days and years listening to somebody. You get connected to them. And for me, it's not summertime without Kids Day, when I have to make sure that my office door is shut because I'm going to be crying for 4 hours. It's not Christmas without breaking and entering and Christmas wishes, where I have to make sure that my door is shut because I'm going to spend 4 hours crying. I mean, those things were staples of the show, and they transcended radio. They made the listeners better people for those types of things. To me, some people are just invincible, and I've been lucky in my life. I've not had to deal with a whole lot of death. My grandmother really is the only person in my family that's passed away. I've lost a few good friends, but it's been several years. So I've never had to deal with death. I mean, my mom and my dad, they're healthy. My grandparents, except, they're healthy. They still have, life to live. And those people are invincible to me. The idea, the morality thought is just, it's not a question. And Kid was one of those people to me, people that I look up to, or they just have this invincible aura. And as somebody that I've tried to emulate in my quote broadcasting career, he was just invincible. And I always told myself if I ever, made it big, if I ever became an actual professional radio show host, I would attribute my success to his example. Because I would hope that I would follow that good example. That I would want to give my life to a cause like Kids. And I would want to only associate myself and my career with things that were soul enriching, that were beneficial to the people that I would be heard by. That I would want to embrace something like the reputation of a goody two-shoes of radio. So, 53-year-old Kid Craddock died of a brain aneurysm yesterday. He was in New York playing golf, a charity golf event for his charity, Kids. Something he devoted his life to, something that his cast members devoted their lives to. And, my heart really just is absolutely broken. So like I said, call me silly for being devastated by his death and spending a whole segment talking about his influence on me. But really, he did touch the lives of so many. Last night, he was trending on Twitter. And I said, he forever changed the format because of people like me who want to emulate that, who want to take his example, and now I have something to help his example and his life live on, and the good things that he did for the world. And I think probably, radio morning shows are forever going to be changed by his example. Even his competitors, they're fierce competitors. Radio's terribly hard business. And if you want to be successful, you have to compete. Even his competitors are heartbroken. That's how much of a good, moral, goody two-shoes example he was. I also said today the world lost a true hero. And I speak for myself and the lives that he touched when I say he's going to be missed. So, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show with that. Terrible way to end the show, I understand, on a sad note. But I wouldn't be true to myself, true to the show, if I didn't at least acknowledge his impact on me, my life, and how I want to conduct myself as a broadcaster. So, in honor of that example, I don't know the legalities of this. I don't know if I can even do that, but just so that I can keep him a part of the broadcast for however long I get to do this, for however long I'm allowed to continue to do this show, for however long you guys are going to listen to the show. I'm going to close out the show every day by using part of his sign-off. Every show he did, his sign-off was, keep looking up, because that's where it all is. And that's something that I will forever remember. And the feeling, like when the show ended, whenever they would say, keep looking up, because that's what it all is, the feeling of almost being empty because the show was over. And now it's over. I'm not sure what the show is going to do. I'm not sure how they're going to move forward. If there's even, if this group of people is even going to stay together to continue the show. But here on my end, he's going to be a part of my show. So I'm going to end the show. And we'll see you next Sunday. So keep looking up. Have a nice week.
From the West Avenue Studios, this is the Jon Alan Show.